After taking number 10 Oklahoma State 61-31 Big 12 to overtime in a defensive battle without turning the football over, Texas 34-22 Big 12 quarterback Sam Ehlinger picked the absolute worst time to throw away his first turnover of the day. Ehlinger floated away a ball to a spot in the end zone with no receiver in the area, and Ramon Richards secured the interception to seal a 13-10 victory for Oklahoma State. The interception came on third down with the Longhorns a short distance away from a shot at a game-tying field goal try to force a second overtime. Texas had the ball spotted at the 6-yard line on the play, shortly after being given the ball at the 12-yard line on a pass interference call in the end zone against Oklahoma State. This was the third time Oklahoma State had played an overtime game this season, and it was also the latest instance of a rebuilding Texas team showing it can hang with the top opponents on its schedule. They just have not been able to make the plays needed to secure a win. Earlier in the season, Texas let USC tie the game at the end of regulation despite holding a late fourth-quarter lead in Los Angeles. A week ago Texas had a fourth-quarter lead on Oklahoma before letting one slip away. This week, Texas just could not hold off the Cowboys despite a fine defensive effort to keep Oklahoma State out of the end zone since the first quarter. The win may not inspire much confidence in Oklahoma State, but the Cowboys will remain in the Big 12 championship hunt as well as on the playoff radar after getting out of Austin with the win. This one was much different from the way Oklahoma State typically wins, with the defense leading the way. Oklahoma State allowed just 13 first downs and held Texas to 3 of 17 on third down tries. Mason Rudolph was without a touchdown pass and he passed for 282 yards. James Washington had 4 catches for 32 yards and Justice Hill rushed for 117 yards without a score for the Cowboys' offense. J.D. King's first quarter score was the lone touchdown by Oklahoma State's offense. Texas will now turn its attention to a road game against Baylor. The Bears entered today without a win this season as they prepared to take on West Virginia. After a game at Baylor, Texas is back on the road to Fort Worth to play TCU before returning home for a big revenge game situation against Kansas. I say that somewhat sarcastically, but genuinely believe that is a game that should have been circled on the Texas schedule before the season started. Oklahoma State will be back on the road next week for another challenge. The Cowboys head to Morgantown, West Virginia, to take on the West Virginia Mountaineers. West Virginia entered today at 42 overall and 21 in Big 12 play before a game against Baylor in Waco. Follow at Kevin Onk FB. It was not the most rousing of responses, but number 15 Washington State bounced back from their first loss of the year last week and thumped Colorado 280 on Saturday night. Many of the struggles could be explained by the conditions, which were rainy and windy for most of the night, in a not-so-lovely bit of fall-winter weather out on the Palouse. Nevertheless, it was an impressive outing by the Cougars' defense as they controlled the game throughout and held the Buffs to just one third-down conversion all night while recording 3 sacks and making life miserable for last year's Pac-12 South champs. Luke Falk was not the most efficient quarterback running WSU's air raid, but did enough to get the victory in a game that never was as close as the scoreboard indicated. He set another Pac-12 career record, this time for completions on a night where he threw just 17 total for 197 yards and 3 touchdowns. Running back Jamal Mara was part of a more balanced approach on offense, rushing for 73 yards and a score that was part of a season-high 194 on the ground. If there was any Pac-12 after dark element to this game, a Mike Leach team coming close to rushing for more yards than they had through the air would be it. As for the Buffs, there will not be much to enjoy when they go back and watch the game film. Running back Philip Lindsay was bottled up fairly successfully and needed nearly 30 carries to run for 98 yards on the night. QB Steven Montez had just 4 completions and was benched in the second half for Sam Noyer after a rough outing. The defense had their moments in recovering 2 fumbles but were continually put in bad spots given how lackluster the offense was. The victory by Wazoo moves them to 71 on the year for the team's best start in over a decade and keeps them atop the Pac-12 North standings, while also keeping them within control of their own destiny when it comes to the conference title. It also sets up a very interesting road trip next week, as they go to Tucson to play an Arizona team that also finds themselves suddenly in the mix for a division title as well. Strange times indeed out west, even if things aren't always pretty. Ugly weather, ugly football. At least for number 15 Washington State, they can say they held the lead. In a rainy, lackluster first half of football, the Cougars managed to head to the locker room up 140 over Colorado at the break in a game that was far from the best showcase of Pac-12 after dark given the suboptimal conditions on the Palouse. Neither offense found much of a rhythm at all as the opposing defenses were fairly feisty and active in the front seven. Wazoo QB Luke Falk at least was doing better than he was last week in a loss to Cal, throwing for 123 yards and the 2 touchdowns that made a difference on the scoreboard. Running back Jamal Morrow chipped in with 53 on the ground despite just 7 carries. Things were not as bright on the other sideline as the Buffs failed to convert on 3rd down in the half and recorded just 4 first downs. Tailback Philip Lindsay was kept in check 58 yards on 18 carries, while QB Steven Montez was only 4 of 13 for a whopping 21 yards. To make matters worse, Colorado starting left tackle Jeremy Irwin was ejected for targeting on a play in which he came back to nail a WSU defender. Falk did seem to start heating up for the Cougs as the second quarter wore on and the rain seemed to die down, but neither team can lay claim to playing all that great early on as one of the few teams still in action late on Saturday night. Hopefully for everybody who's football starved and still watching, some halftime adjustments will lead to some improved play on both sides. What David Sills is doing in Morgantown is one of the more intriguing and impressive subplots of the 2017 college football season. Once a highly touted quarterback prodigy, as a 13-year-old he was offered a scholarship to USC by Lane Kiffin. Sills moved to wide receiver not long after signing with West Virginia as part of their 2015 recruiting class. In June of 2016, WVU announced that Sills was moving on to the junior college level to pursue his dream of playing quarterback. 6 months later, that dream ended as WVU announced that Sills had come back to the Mountaineers and was coming back as a receiver. In 2015, prior to his move away, Sills caught 7 passes for 131 yards and a pair of touchdowns in 8 games as a true freshman this season. Sills has taken his receiving game to a whole other level, or levels rarely seen in college football. Through the first 7 games of the 2017 season, the junior Sills has caught 15 touchdown passes, including 3 in a Week 8 win over Baylor that was almost a loss as WVU nearly coughed up a 25-point fourth-quarter lead. To put Sills' individual production into perspective, no other player entered this weekend with double-digit receiving touchdowns, with Memphis Lamar Miller the closest with 9. He had none in a Thursday night win over Houston. Not only is he running away from his fellow receivers this season, Sills is also chasing some significant history. With 5 games left in the regular season, plus a bowl game, and maybe a Big 12 championship game as well, Sills is just 12 touchdowns away from tying the FBS single-season record of 27 touchdown catches set by Louisiana Tech's Troy Edwards in 1998. Sills is also a mere 10 scores away from tying the school record of 25 set by Stedman Bailey in 2012. Bailey is currently tied for second all-time with Marshall's Randy Moss, who set the FBS record of 25 the year before it was broken by Edwards. And since again we're here, former Florida and current WVU quarterback Will Grier has thrown 26 touchdown passes in 7 games this season. The Gators have thrown 26 touchdown passes in their last 23 games, dating back to November of 2015. Use that little nugget at your own whim. The trajectory of Penn State's program changed with last season's loss to Michigan. That 4,910 drubbing in Ann Arbor dropped the Nittany Lions to 22 on the season and 26 dating back to the close of the 2015 season and furthered the narrative that James Franklin couldn't compete against the elite of the Big Ten. Penn State is now the elite of the Big Ten. The number 2 Nittany Lions entered Saturday night 151 since that blowout loss to Michigan, and improved to 161 with a 4,213 defeat of number 19 Michigan. Penn State offensive coordinator Joe Moorhead pulled out a wrinkle on the Nittany Lions' second play from scrimmage, and it worked to perfection. Quarterback Trace McSorley and running back Saquon Barkley shifted press snap, and Barkley took the direct snap and raced 69 yards untouched for a touchdown. After forcing a 3-and-out, Penn State moved 78 yards in 4 plays, keyed by a 35-yard rainbow heave from McSorley to tight end Mike Gesicki. Barkley scored his second touchdown of the first quarter 1 play later, a 15-yard burst around the right side, but Penn State's offense stalled from there. The Lions' next possession ended in a McSorley interception, and the possession after that was a 3-and-out that lost 9 yards. Penn State penetrated Michigan territory midway through the second quarter, but Barkley dropped a wheel route that would have put the Lions inside the red zone. Penn State turned the ball over on downs 2 plays later. Meanwhile, Michigan turned McSorley's interception into an 11-play, 59-yard touchdown drive capped by a 1-yard Karen Higdon run on 4th and goal. Quinn Nordin missed the ensuing pat. After the turnover on downs, Michigan marched 67 yards on a series of John O'Korn plays, a 14-yard rush, an 18-yard strike to Donovan Peoples-Jones, and 23 yards to Kekoa Crawford. Ty Isaac powered in from 6 yards out to pull the Wolverines within one with 145 to play before the half threatened. For the first time of the evening, Penn State ended its streak of 3 straight unsuccessful drives with a 7-play, 75-yard march that consumed only 52 seconds. McSorley accounted for 68 yards on the drive, including a 3-yard rush to put the home team back up 8. That momentum continued into the second half. The Lions opened the second half with a 9-play, 80-yard march that closed with McSorley's second touchdown run, and, after a 3-and-out, Penn State's backfield battery put the game out of reach with a 42-yard touchdown connection from McSorley to Barkley. McSorley closed the night hitting 17 of 26 throws for 282 yards with a touchdown and an interception and 11 carries for 76 yards and 3 scores. Barkley rushed 15 times for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns with 3 grabs for 53 yards and a touchdown. As a team, Penn State racked up 506 yards of total offense, more than double the 223.8 yards per game Michigan's FBS leading defense entered the night surrendering, and Franklin allowed the clock to expire with Penn State inside the Michigan 10-yard line and 3 timeouts in his pocket, so it could have been worse. Trailing 3,513 early in the fourth quarter, Jim Harbaugh put together a last-chance drive to claw back in the game, but O'Korn was sacked on 4th down near midfield. McSorley's third touchdown run of the night, a 9-yarder with 7:53 to play, added the exclamation point. The win pushed Penn State to 70 on the season 40 Big Ten and advanced the Nittany Lions into the game of the year in the Big Ten and perhaps the entire college football regular season. A visit to number 6 Ohio State next Saturday 3:30 p.m. ET, Fox. Michigan dropped to 52 overall and 22 in Big Ten play. Trailing Penn State, Michigan State and Ohio State by 2 games and ceding the tiebreaker to the first 2, the 2017 season officially takes on rebuilding year status as the Wolverines are now playing for positioning among the Tampa-Orlando-Jacksonville Bowl games in 2018 preparation. The Nittany Lions, though, are playing for much more, and they have Michigan to thank for that.